Hi there and welcome. Thanks for joining our first IndieBiz EDU of this year in September. We'll probably have a couple more, so make sure that you're on our email list and you're on our directory. So Portland by Local, I think most of you are familiar, but I think we have some new faces, at least behind the screen today. And so what we do is Portland by Local is a locally owned, we're a local organization that supports locally owned and independent businesses. We're here to help them thrive and provide free education like this. And we're also here to educate the public about what's the difference between choosing a local business, locally owned independent business, versus a chain or franchise. There is a big difference, and we want to make sure that the community as well as our tourism industry understands that. So here we are today. We're going to talk about AI and small business marketing. And yes, you do use AI today. We all use AI in our lives today, whether we know it or not. And our big franchise corporation competitors are using AI in their marketing. And so how can we do that in a more effective and efficient way for our small businesses? So first, I want to just thank our sponsor, Gorham Savings Bank. They helped us get this off the ground over 2 years ago, and they are still our sponsor today. So we thank them very much. And I will now turn to our speakers to start talking about AI and small business marketing. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Connor.
Sure. Hi, my name is Connor Sullivan. I work at the Endurance Group. My father founded the company about 20 years ago. The company has taken a lot of different turns since he founded the company, but primarily right now we help small businesses basically help with their sales and marketing. And we're primarily focusing on creating AI solutions for those companies.
My name is Rich Brooks. I'm the president of Flight New Media. We're a digital agency located here in Portland. We do branding, websites, digital marketing. Been in business for over 27 years now. And I also run the Agents of Change Digital Marketing Conference, which is an annual in-person conference here in Portland. And it's actually taking place next month on October 9th.
I'll be there.
Me as well.
So awesome. So why don't we just get right into it. And for those in the room and on Zoom, we will take questions. So just hold your questions. Feel free to put them in the chat now if you want, but we will get to them about halfway through the session. So first question I always ask everyone, this is not controversial and very easy to answer, is what was the last local business that you spent money at and why did you go there?
I could go. I got coffee this morning at Sea Salt in Cape Elizabeth. I go there with my 3-year-old daughter pretty much every single weekend after soccer or swimming. It's really nice to get coffee from someone other than the big chain.
Great.
And my offices are here in town, and so the last place I went to is Anthony's, and it's probably because I love their eggplant parm. And I also, Tony is just such a nice guy. He always remembers me by name, always shakes my hand, and he always has a story to tell. So that's why I go there.
Great. Thank you for sharing. So to open it up, I think a lot of the people in this room and online are probably Generation X, like myself. And AI to us growing up, we saw it was the movies, right? It was Short Circuit and RoboCop and the Terminator, right? That was AI for us. So that's not exactly what we're talking about today. Sorry for those fans. But can we start with a definition of AI in this context?
Do you want us to alternate?
Yeah, alternate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, for
Whoever's
me,
first.
of the artificial intelligence, but it's basically these tools that think similar to the way that humans think, that allow us to do our jobs more efficiently and hopefully make our lives easier. Obviously, there's downsides to it, but I look at it mostly as an assistant these days.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add is I feel like there's a common misconception right now that AI means ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is a form of AI, and it's a really powerful tool, but there are a lot of different AI tools that do things other than ChatGPT.
I used ChatGPT yesterday.
Yes.
So can you share some examples then of how small businesses may already be using AI in their marketing?
Sure. I'm sure most people listening here use some sort of CRM tool like a HubSpot or a Salesforce. All of those tools have AI working in the background. We've talked a lot about different ways working with small businesses. Most of them have some sort of chatbot or something on their website, so I would imagine they're probably using that on a day-to-day basis as well.
For me, and I'll just speak personally because I'm not an AI expert as much as I'm somebody who just loves using the tools. I mean, just this morning, I got a rough draft for an article that's going to be published on our website. I love writing, and I went through it myself, but I also put it into ChatGPT. I gave it some criteria. I asked it, what would you do to improve this article? Are there any gaps in this article? Here are the keywords we're going after. Here's the audience we're going after. How would you improve it? And basically, it gave me some ideas that I didn't have. So I went back and added that element on top of it, and then passed it back to my teammates. So that's just one example of how I'm using it on a daily basis.
I'm a former high school English teacher. So before I joined my dad in the family business, I taught 9th, 10th, and 11th grade English for 6 years. It's definitely been really interesting, like hearing stories like Rich's, because I do that now too. And I just think about all the essays that I used to assign my students and how every single one of those could now be done in seconds on ChatGPT. And it just made me really think, like, you know, if I was still teaching, how would I be teaching writing? Because I do think that AI has changed that. You still need some sort of human element to look into it and decide which of those edits work for my company and which don't. But it's really interesting to think about how AI just changed writing specifically.
So what's the first step that a business should take to integrate AI into their marketing? First of all, is understanding it, but what's that first step that you've?
For me, it would probably be, what is the problem you're trying to solve? So I wouldn't start with AI. AI is a tool that you can use to solve problems, but I would probably say, what's keeping me up at night? Where am I struggling in my business? For me, just one example is, we hang our hats on our ability to do analytics and reporting, but it takes 1 week out of every month for my team to do this. So that to me is a pain point because it feels like it's taking way too much. So this is why I'm looking at AI. Is that the right solution? But you start with the problem, you figure out that you have the right processes in place so that you can train AI on how to help you. And then you might decide, is AI really the right tool for this? And if so, then you proceed.
How do you know if it's the right tool, I guess? Yeah.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
I think, no, I completely agree with what Rich said.
Yeah.
Whenever I talk to clients and they say, I want AI, I'm like, all right, well, let's back up for a second. I usually start with, what's something that took you more than an hour this week that was annoying to you, that felt like that's not something you really want to be spending your time on. So just last week, I was talking to a client and they were in the middle of performance reviews. And it takes a long time for them to take all of the Google survey data that they got from their managers, as well as the personal reflection data. They needed to copy and paste that all into a document and then compare it to a rubric. And it said it took them like multiple hours. And I said, all right, well, that's something we can work with. So we talked about an AI that could take all the data from those surveys and put it into a document. Now the key, as Rich said, is it's not going to be perfect, but taking 10 minutes to review that, the performance review that it created and making some slight edits is way better than the 2 hours it took to copy and paste everything in and reformat it yourself.
That's interesting, because I bet a lot of small businesses are getting reviews too.
Yes.
Like, is there a way to,
Yeah, I mean, the idea is, I think the best way to look at it is like something that just takes time that you feel like you would be rather spending your time doing something else. And there's some problems that, you know, I'm gonna have to talk to Rich about his data analytics. Maybe that's not something an AI should work on, right? But most likely there's some way you can save time.
Yeah, I think it's about, what are your priorities for the business? Is this work repetitive? Is this work boring? Do you not like doing this work? So there's and how often do you do this? So if it's a one-off and it's boring, I probably wouldn't use AI for that. But if this is something that you're doing every single day, or it's taking a lot of time, that's a place where I'd start to think about, is this a good use of AI?
And that helps you measure ROI then, because if you're trying to figure out how much this AI is going to cost to implement, then you can look at, all right, well, it's going to save me this many hours, and I can be spending this many hours doing something else. It's a lot easier to measure it that way.
So going back to marketing, how does AI fit? So it sounds, don't start with AI. That's what I've heard. Okay. But so how does it fit then into those common digital marketing strategies like email marketing, social media, content creation, et cetera?
I can just talk about social media. So one of my clients is in the medical space. So she has a bunch of clients that are doctors and therapists, and they often have courses that they allow their clients to subscribe to.
Okay.
But these doctors and therapists don't have time to be writing daily social media.
No.
That takes a long time.
Neither do most small business owners either.
But, I'm looking at doctors. So what I did with her was we took all of those doctors' white papers, blogs, everything on their website, and then we put that into an AI, and they can say, create a content calendar for me for the week. So it would give you, again, a draft of a week's worth of social media posts. They're not perfect, but maybe all of a sudden that took them now a couple hours. They can now redo those in 20 minutes, and now they have their content for the week.
So if I'm a small business, I don't have white papers and stuff like that, but I have emails, I have a website.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
that I
so
could also
any
use.
sort of, as long as, a lot, as we said, AIs can come in a lot of different forms, but in this case, they had a bunch of text and they wanted to put that into another form, right? How do you translate this 20-page white paper that I wrote into interesting social media content? I'm sure those doctors can do it if they had the time, but it's not exactly something they like to do.
Yeah.
I think we use it in a bunch of different ways, and I use it constantly, but one of the things that you can do with it is train it up in your voice and train it to write better copy. So if anybody's used ChatGPT, the first time you use it, you're like, it's magic. Like, how did it come up with this poem about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in 5 seconds? But then the more you use it, if you're just using a single prompt, the more you're thinking about, like, this is really generic copy. This doesn't sound like my brand. This doesn't sound like my voice. So without going down the rabbit hole, there are ways to train tools like ChatGPT, or Claude is another one. Train it in your voice by uploading specific types of writing that you write. And in a perfect world, if you wanted one that sounds like you to write emails, you would give it a few of your most recent emails that you thought were really well written and start to train it in your voice. You could, and then ask it questions. What's my style? Am I humorous? Am I authoritative? Until you hone it down to it sounds more like you. And then when you have something like, here's an event we've got, you can send them to the website, write me up an email that's going to get people to tune into the Zoom. And it will give you that first draft. And then you can go through it and you can either tell it what you didn't like about it to make it iteratively better, or you could just take that rough draft and clean it up yourself and put it into an email. So that might be some ways in which businesses could be using this.
The only other things I would add is videos. As we can tell, for an event like this, they can sometimes be very, very expensive. And short form videos are the way marketing's going right now. And there are a lot of really great AI tools out there that can help you create short form content videos that'll really help your business.
Okay. What are some of those? And can you repeat that one that you just mentioned that's...
Claude.
Okay.
C-L-A-U-D-E. That's I actually like it better for writing than I do for ChatGPT. I just think it does a better job, but I think if you're only going to invest in one, and by the way, invest in it. Don't use the free versions. For $20 a month, it's the best investment you could possibly make. And almost every AI tool, it seems like, is $20 a month. So I actually have a few different ones that I go back and forth with just so I can experiment with it. But yeah, ChatGPT would probably be, if you can only have one, that would be the one that I would go with, just because it's like a Swiss Army knife. But Claude is a great tool too. And back to your question about video, yes, so I will, I'm on the 207 show once a month, and I'll very often take those videos and then I put it up to a tool called Kapwing. I didn't come up with a name. It's Kapwing, and what that tool does is it basically it creates transcriptions and captions on the fly, like interactive captions, which are great, but it can also, if you put it up there, find the most interesting elements of a longer form video and pull them out and edit it down automatically for you, and then you can go in and do some fine tuning. A lot of people use Opus Clip. I've tried that one too. I just find Kapwing gives me a little bit more control, so that's the one that I tend to use. But sometimes I don't even need to edit it, so I can take a long form video, upload it, get like 3 different versions of it. A couple of buttons later, all of a sudden I've got some social media content for me to share.
So for those, just going back to these, I don't know if I can call them like legacy activities or legacy tools like email and social media, but like, how do I embed it? Is it really like I'm going into this, I'm kind of getting into a little bit nitty gritty, like
if we're talking about
kind
the
of a how-to for
videos,
people.
right, I would probably be putting those up to social media because video doesn't do well on email only because there's so many different email clients and they all behave differently. But what I have done in the past is take a screen capture of a video, put that image into the email, and then link it to where the video is, which is a little bit of a hack, but it will get people to a web page where they can watch the video, or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah. The only thing I want to add to Rich's point is it might seem like, oh, do I really need to get the $20 version of ChatGPT versus the free one? The number one reason I tell my clients to do that is for security. If you are using the free version of any of these AI tools, buried in the fine print there, it says that they can use your data that you input in there to train its model.
Yeah.
That means when you say, write this email better, which might seem like a very simple prompt to put in, everything you've written in that content can then be used to train the AI model, and therefore is not your data anymore. It could be potentially searched by somebody else. This is very important, especially if, for example, you're writing a letter to an employee telling them they're going on an improvement plan, or maybe like from an HR function. You can imagine that could get really dicey pretty quickly.
I'm not even clear if the $20 version actually protects your data, and this is one of the problems that small, medium-sized businesses have, is that most of the privacy tools that you're talking about are at enterprise level that we probably couldn't afford. This is like one of the current problems that SMBs have. So my advice to that would be is anonymize it. Don't say, hey Jennifer, you're going on this like improvement process right now. I would just say, person X, and then add the names back in. And it's the same thing if you want to upload any data, like sales data or Google Analytics data to an AI tool, is unless you have some sort of sandbox and you're running it on a local computer, then I would always anonymize that data because, like Connor was saying, you're training the models, which basically means you're putting it out there. Does it mean that someone's going to see it? No, it's probably not, but it could come through in somebody else's data, and that could be problematic.
The number one tool I would recommend that solves a lot of these issues, it's called CustomGPT.ai. That is my number one go-to tool for most AIs, especially for small business. The price is relatively inexpensive compared to some of these other tools, and they have very, very high security.
Okay.
Have to check that one out.
Yeah, CustomGPT.ai. We're an implementation partner, so if you do need help figuring it out, let me know. But it's even for non-techie people like me, former high school English teacher, I could figure it out. So.
So my next question actually was about like what are the tools? So can we just maybe summarize? Okay, for writing and for video, and is imaging, is that getting there? I mean, I tried like the AI tool in Canva the other day, and it was like, this person looked like an elephant. It was so bad. So what are the tools? First, let's do writing and video, and then let's just ask about images, if that's next.
So the problem with using tools like Canva and Adobe, because Adobe also has in Photoshop has these built in, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. What's good is they only use images, they only source images that they have rights to, so you never have to worry about infringing on somebody else's copyright. But because the data pool is so much smaller, that's why your person looked like an elephant, because there's just less data for the AI to work off of. If you use a tool like DALL-E, which is part of ChatGPT, literally right within the interface you can say, can I get an image of X, and it'll create that image. Or Midjourney is another tool. It's just the interface for Midjourney is not easy to use. There's a learning curve there. You do get better results out of those tools, but I do think that you need to put a little bit more into them. And I should say that all the tools we're talking about today are incredibly powerful, but there is a learning curve. Like, it's not like just magically on your first prompt you're going to be able to create a customer persona that you can talk to or anything like that. It does take some work to train these tools up to do what you want them to do.
Yeah, images are really tough. I will say, again, like I've just mentioned earlier, the social media content one, we've tried and we just did not like the images it was creating. That being said, ChatGPT just came out with a new model last week. and it's getting better. So if you would have, I'm sure if we do this again in a couple months, the answer can be different. But I think to Rich's point, it's not quite there yet, but give it a couple months, I think it will be.
Or you can just support your local photographer. Because they need business.
Yeah.
And videographer too.
Yes, yeah.
So what resources then? So you said there's a learning curve, right? So are there resources out there to help small business owners that are looking to learn more about AI on their own?
I can't believe I'm saying this because I feel like this technology was way below me for a while, but TikTok is unbelievable. I know for people that are on video, they're getting a lot of weird looks from the
cookie
people
recipes
here.
or, you know.
I recently started using it and I have learned so much just from different people out there. Not everything's great. It's, you know, like any social media, but the TikTok content for AI and automation is unbelievable. Like just the other day, I learned that if you there's this automation that this person learned, and they put it for free out on TikTok. You put the video in, it does what Rich says, it takes the transcription, and it gives you like a month's worth of social media content off of one video. And she just showed exactly how to do it step by step in this one TikTok. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So definitely, you know, I would say, again, I can't believe I'm saying this because I thought it was something only my younger cousins used, but TikTok it's really good.
Okay.
Sticking with the video idea, I mean, I find when I have a question, I usually turn to YouTube, and there's somebody there to walk you through specific things. I also started listening recently to an AI podcast put out by Mike Stelzner, who also does a Social Media Examiner. And he interviews some really smart people in the AI world. And then there's another group, it's the Marketing AI Institute. They're the people who put on the MACON conference, which is Marketing AI conference, which I've gone to the last couple of years. And they have a weekly podcast. They also have a Slack channel. There are a million resources out there, just like for any other topic. It's just about finding the people that resonate with you or finding the way that you like to learn things. If you want to watch somebody do something, TikTok or YouTube. If you like listening to ideas that you can implement later, I might recommend a podcast. And then the other thing is talk to your GPT, or talk to your AI. You know, ask it, how do I accomplish this? And it will tell you. And then sometimes I'll say, hey, I want to be able to do this. What information do you need from me? And then it will list off things that will make the answer better. So those are some ways. If you don't know how to do something, literally ask ChatGPT.
And when you say like talk to your AI, that's whatever tool you're currently using. Correct?
I use ChatGPT in the same way I use the term Kleenex or thermos. It's just like an umbrella term now.
Okay. Well, they did,
Yeah, Sam Altman loves when you do that. The only one I would shout out is also the Rue Institute right here in Portland. They have a lot of really great webinars, especially on AI. I just went to one last week on prompt engineering. So how do you ask the AI different things? They have they're definitely trying to bring AI to Maine. So they have a lot of good resources. Highly recommend them.
Cool. Are those paid or are they
I went to one that was free.
Okay. There you go.
I think they obviously have some courses you'd have to pay for, but they have like free webinars and things as well.
Excellent. Pete, can I have a time check just to know what time it is?
9:23.
Okay. I'll ask a few more questions. So what are the top 3 activities, goals, or needs that AI can help with for small business marketing that you've seen, that you've from your clients or from yourself?
For me, it was probably ideation. Like literally, if I don't know where to start a project, I will just kind of start talking to ChatGPT or one of the other tools to kind of figure out like what are the things that I should be talking about, what are the things that I should be including in this. That's one of my big ones. I would say that helping me frame out blog posts and other articles or even emails. I still like to write myself, but having it create a framework for a blog post, because as humans, we're not really good at seeing what we don't know. But ChatGPT or one of these other AI tools, like if I'm going to write an article about Google Analytics 4, and I say, here's what I want to write about, and it may suggest some things that I hadn't considered, so now I know I need to add that in. So those are a couple ways that I would recommend using it all the time. And I guess one other thing. So I use Fathom, which is a freemium tool that can go with almost every video conferencing, Zoom included. And I use this for all my sales calls. So I always ask permission first, but then when I'm on with a call and then afterwards, I can literally query the conversation, be like, what did Joe say that his biggest pain points were? Or what was the reason why I didn't want to go forward with this? And not only will Fathom tell me based on that conversation, it will actually send me to the part of the video right where Joe was talking about his pain points. And that's incredibly helpful when I'm writing up a proposal. And I use that same technology for all my podcast recordings. And sometimes if I get on and I do a pre-interview with you or with Connor, and we talk for 15 minutes, afterwards I might say to Fathom, what are 10 questions I could ask Connor or Amy for my podcast, and it will generate those questions, saving me a lot of time. I'm not going to use those questions verbatim, because some of them are ridiculous, but the bottom line is it's a great place to start and a huge time saver.
Yeah, I'll shout out Fathom there for a second.
Okay.
So the other day I made an AI for a client that we took Fathom, but it actually wrote the proposal.
Oh, nice.
Using it, because we put in proposals that they'd written in the past, and then we took the Fathom data and said, use this proposal to write the proposal based on that. So you can even go a step further.
Absolutely.
Chat. But anyway, I'd say I'll speak about sales primarily. Obviously, sales and marketing have a lot of crossover,
Sure.
but I think the research aspect that AI can provide is really, really helpful. So, for example, you can, if you have a list of companies you've always dreamed of working with, right? So if you're a small business and you've always wanted to work with LL Bean, they're one of your top prospects, you can put in all of the recent news about LL Bean. So every single time LL Bean is put into the news, you can put that into the AI. You can put in their annual report, you can put in their website, and then you can say, write an email to the head of marketing at LL Bean explaining why I should work with them. And it can bring in all of that information that would take you a long time to go through on your own if you were going to read an entire annual report and their entire website.
It's like having a research assistant.
Exactly. So yeah, so I think that I'd say is really, really helpful. So we've been talking a lot about content generation, and obviously the end goal here is to write that email, but it's more about the research that goes into it to actually creating that. So this is a little more complicated because you can't, if you go to ChatGPT and just say, write an email to the head of LL Bean, it's going to do an okay job. This is kind of going a step further and saying, hey, ChatGPT, analyze these documents and then write the email. Saves a little more work, but I think the result's really worth it.
So that brings me to persona. So like a lot of small businesses, right? You know, some of them are trying to do a B2B kind of, I want to work with another business, but a lot of them are trying to get more clients or customers to their store or to their service, business. So how do I use that to try to reach my ideal client?
Yeah, I mean, the same principle applies, right? Like you could take what a typical client's, typical customer's Facebook profile looks like. What does their LinkedIn profile look like? What does their Instagram look like? Put all of that into an AI.
So you literally
and
just do a link,
thing.
be like,
Yeah,
Connor's my target market. I'm targeting, fathers with young children.
Yeah, and
Boom.
then also maybe you have some demographic data, right? Maybe you
Okay.
want to put in some, if you're saying you're going after 30-year-old men, and then you can find some research online about what 30-year-old men are interested in right now. You can put that into the AI and do that kind of work. So obviously I brought up a B2B example, but the same research applies.
Yeah, I would probably, if you've been in business for any length of time, you have a customer base already. So the simple, easy way to do this, it would be just go to one of these generative AI tools like Claude or ChatGPT and give it a description of your ideal customer. And then what it will do is it'll generate a persona based on that, pain points, and then you can start asking it questions. What makes this even stronger, or what takes it to the next level, is if you actually say interview 5 of your top clients, your favorite clients, and you have a series of questions, you record it using Fathom, so you get the transcriptions too, you feed it all into an AI tool and you say, using this data, can you refine this ideal buyer persona? And then once you have it and you feel good about it, then you can ask it questions like, what conferences do you attend? What kind of stores do you go to? Where do you like to shop? And using this amalgamation, one of the things that AI is strong with is prediction and finding trends and patterns. So you could use that as a way, at least to get started on, and then you go and you rewrite your blog post and say, write this blog post for Alex, because Alex is always the name they seem to give every single persona it creates. So rewrite this blog post with Alex in mind and Alex's pain points and all this sort of thing. So that's kind of taking things to the next level. So again, AI is a great tool, but it is not, at least yet, this magic tool that you don't, it's a single prompt and you get exactly the right solution. It's about learning how to use these tools more effectively at this point, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think one of the most common misconceptions I see is that people think AI can do everything.
Yeah.
And it's much better to create one AI that's really good at Alex, right?
Yeah.
Like he knows exactly this customer persona, and this AI is going to help you target Alex. But then you have another AI that's really good at doing email or blog creation, right? So it's better. It's very rare that you're gonna, unless you have something like a ChatGPT that's the Swiss Army knife. It's much better to have a couple different AIs for different purposes.
Okay. And so I know a lot of pain point for small businesses right now is hiring too. So I mean, I'm assuming you could do the same thing for trying to target potential employees, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of HR AI tools out there as well.
Are there?
Oh
Okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you still got to get on the call and interview them, right?
Right. But just finding them,
but,
I think that's
yeah.
been somewhat of a challenge recently.
Yeah, it does seem like things are getting a little bit easier these days, but yes, in certain industries it's still pretty tough to find the right people. And I'm not exactly sure how I would use AI other than maybe starting off with, I need to go to a wider talent pool. What should I be doing to attract more people? Or let's say that you have a page on your website that's all about recruitment and why you should work at your company. You may feel that it's ineffective. So what you could do is either copy and paste the text or take a screen capture of the whole page, feed it into an AI tool like ChatGPT and say, we are this kind of company and we're looking to bring in this type of employee. How could I improve this page to make it more likely that people would apply for a job here? And it will come back with a bunch of things that might include things like you should include an employee testimonial. You should include like how you have competitive rates. Show some pictures of you going on like a rafting trip as a team, whatever it may be. All these things you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? And then you can go back and improve that page. And that would be true with any page on your website as well.
Yep.
So why don't we take questions from the audience? I want to make sure that we get to everybody's questions because I know that people have questions. So why don't we start in the room? Does anybody have a question in the room at this time? Yeah, Heather, can you speak into the mic so we can get it recorded?
Hi there. Am I on?
Yes.
Thanks for having this session, by the way. It's awesome. So you talked about lots of tools, including some for photos, but I wasn't sure if those also translated to graphic design. Are there any specific AI tools for, like, say, you come up with a month's worth of social posts and you want graphics to go with that? Is there a tool that can help you create the graphics?
I would say Canva can do that for sure, and Canva does have AI tools built in. And I think this is what we're starting to see too. Besides these standalone AI tools, a lot of your tech stack that you're already using is now adding AI to it. So all the Google products, all the Microsoft products, Canva, all the Adobe products as well. So that might be one way, but also if you use, say, ChatGPT to create a month's worth of social media post, you could also then, probably I would recommend doing it one at a time, but you might be able to get it to do all the images at once. Just say create an image for each one of these social media posts. And what it looks like, you might want to refine it. Usually with images I find there's a lot of iteration, and there are certain things that it's good at and certain things that it's not good at, and you have to practice a little bit. But yes, you absolutely could say, for the 30 days of posts that I have, come up with an image that's relevant for each one of these posts. You could give it a style. On Canva, you can actually associate your brand guide with it, so it will know what colors to use and things like that. So those are some tools that I would play around with and get started with.
The only thing I would add to that is I found that it doesn't do well when you try to put words in the graphics. Sometimes, have you noticed
100%.
this? Yeah, like it like doesn't, like if for instance you want something to say, new boots, right? It would like misspell new boots and like do weird things like that.
Yeah, in the same way that it'll give you 6 fingers, it'll give you like an L instead of a number 1 or whatever it might be. So
It seems much better when it's not people in the graphic right now.
So that's where I would use a tool like Canva or Photoshop, where you can use the tool. Like for Photoshop, this is just one example. I wanted to have an image of a guy sleeping or not being able to sleep for an email. And the image was very small, it was just his head looking panicked. And I put it into Adobe Photoshop, I created a much wider canvas, and then basically I used a tool called Generative Fill. And I just basically had it fill in to basically create his blanket that would stretch the rest of the image that I wanted to use. So it's really good in situations like that. So if you needed to have words in there, if you want to have the Sunshine Guide, as the actual words, but you wanted something else behind it, I would have the original photo, and then I would select everything I want AI to mess with.
Yeah.
And then it'll create some versions for you.
And then you can just add your own words underneath it. Again, I'm sure if we talk in a couple months, that might be changed, but just one thing I've noticed lately, for some reason, the words in the image don't do very well right now.
We have a question online, John, or we have one more here. We'll go back and forth.
They wanted to know if an email will go out with all the different apps that you suggested.
A different what?
All the apps.
People want to know all the apps.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that. I was going to ask you guys after the fact. You just give me a list and we'll send.
Sure.
That's a great idea. So thank you for whoever recommended that. I was thinking that already. I need them for myself. So, yes, we will.
Hi, I'm Rain. So I'm wondering, for a small business that cares about sustainability, how do you measure your AI tool's environmental impact?
Ooh.
They're terrible, is the short answer right now. AI is a huge resource suck. There's no two ways about it. It'll hopefully get better, but it's nothing that we can necessarily change. You could choose to use less of it, but there's not really a small business hour level solution to doing that as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate part is the irony here is we're talking about AI for small businesses, but a lot of the AI tools that our small businesses can afford are having those types of impacts right now, right? Because they're larger, so they're able to offer lower prices than some of these smaller ones. So yeah, I wish we had a better answer.
I think in the near future, we're going to see companies that have their own LLMs or other AI models that are specifically promoting themselves as being more environmentally friendly. In fact, I think I've already seen that start to bubble up a little bit. They're usually outliers, but that might be something that you could find in LLM that is specifically using renewable energy rather than some of these other technologies that are currently being used.
Good business idea, though.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, when you say talking to it, do you mean actually talking to it or typing?
Either. So one of my favorite AI tools, although I don't really use it too much for business, is called Pi, P-I. It's a free tool. It's an app you can download off either Apple or Android. And I learned about it last year at Macon. Have you used this one?
Yeah, I like Pi.
And the new ChatGPT is supposed to be the exact same way, but basically you can literally just have a conversation with it. So I opened it up right after I got back from the Macon conference the first year, and I said, I want to introduce AI to my team, but I know that many of them might be nervous about losing their jobs or whatever the case may be. How can I approach this? And Pi, basically, we ended up having a 45-minute conversation, back and forth. It was like having a business mentor there, somebody to bounce ideas off of. And at a certain point, I got tired of that conversation. I'm like, well, what's your favorite Marvel movie? And she's like, oh, and I say she because it was a female voice. She's like, oh, I really like them all, but I'd have to say, and then she said which one she believed was the best, and then we had a conversation about that, and we talked about 45 minutes just sitting out there in the back patio with my phone on my chest having this. And although I've never seen the movie, I can understand the movie Her now a lot better, where you would actually fall in love with your AI. So
I was like, how does your family feel about this?
Yeah.
I will say, I prefer typing to it just in general because I feel like I'm much better explaining my thoughts that way. But I do think having conversations verbally works too.
And it's not just that too. So like the other day I was out in my garden and I basically had ChatGPT open on my phone. I snapped a picture of of some of the hot peppers I'm growing, and I said, what type of pepper is this, and is it ready to be harvested? And it said, that looks like a ghost pepper, and I would probably wait a couple more days. So I mean, it's like you can use it in a lot of different ways. It's obviously not very business related unless your business is growing hot peppers, but you can interact with the AI in a number of different ways right now.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of a business one. So I'm working right now on a personal shopper AI. Just again for some of the small retailers. Someone can take a picture of their friend wearing an outfit, and you could then say, hey, do you have anything in your store that's like this? And it could find a shirt that that person's wearing that looks similar to something in your inventory, right? So it's better than having to search for white shirt that you would type something in. In this case, you could literally, screenshot someone's Instagram and be like, find me an outfit like this. So that's what I'm working on right now. If any retailers
As long as you have
out
an
there.
online store.
Yeah, you have to have all your inventory would have to be online. But that's how it works. So if you want to chat about that, if you're a retailer, let me know.
Other questions online?
Okay, you guys mentioned this earlier, but what is the best app for writing and for video, mostly video editing?
So my personal favorite for writing is probably Claude, but Jasper is another one. And to be honest, these are the biggest, most well-known names. There are literally 10,000 writing AI tools. So it's like, I don't know what the best one is. The best one might be something that's specific, like I just heard about one the other day. I think it's like, I won't even remember the name of it now, but it has different personas. So if you want to have something written in the voice of a journalist versus a high school teacher versus a kid, it can do that. Now I would argue that you can do the same thing in ChatGPT if you tell it what to do, but and then on video editing, there's a lot of good tools. We mentioned Kapwing. Descript is one that I know that almost everybody falls in love with, and one of the guys who's speaking at my conference who does a lot of AI video editing, and he talks about Opus Clip, but he always says like Descript is basically the ChatGPT for that. Like it is the tool that does just about everything, and I know that my transcriptionist uses Descript quite a bit, and there's just a lot of video and audio editing tools where you can literally edit the text and it will edit the video. So that's a pretty neat tool and a big time saver.
I mentioned CustomGPT earlier. I really like CustomGPT because you can very easily load in your previous content that you actually have written yourself and do exactly what Rich was saying about teaching it a persona. So I think in terms of writing, that's one I like just because it's so customizable. In terms of video, I really like InVideo. They are the most simple one that I've ever found. You literally type into it just like you would a ChatGPT, create me a video that shows people shopping in Portland, Maine, and it'll take footage that's, again, not been copyrighted or anything. It'll make you a full video with a voice overlay. You can put your own voice in there so it can actually like speak as you. So I'd say InVideo would be my video one.
Because right now I would say the text to video tools that are available on the market are at best weird hallucinations, and they're very short, they're very clippy. And it sounds like similar to this. I've used Lumen 5 in the past, and that's one that's got a library of royalty-free images and video. So you can type in a script, or you can ask it to write a script based on some points, and it will pull in all of these video elements that can create a 30 to 2-minute long video that's great for social. And I use this as an example when I was doing a presentation, and it was for this made-up place called The Warehouse because I was speaking to event planners, and it creates this video, and right towards the end, it shows what looks like a scene out of the horror movie Saw. It's this horrific-looking warehouse covered in blood and everything like that. And I kept it in there just to show this is why we can't trust AI entirely. We have to go back and edit this. But to your point, like you can bring in your own video, your own clips, your own voiceover to supplement this. But the AI can stitch together this pretty slick promo video for you.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the room or online?
Yeah, online, just clarification. When you said the app, was that the script or
Descript.
Descript?
DE script, pretty sure.
Okay, and they have a question about, what they want to do is upload their own videos and have the tool edit them.
So Opus Clip or Kapwing would be good if you want to be able to have it like find some of the highlights and things like that. Or if you want to mess around with it a little bit after it's up there. Those are two tools that I've used.
Yeah, I feel like I'd like to have a longer conversation with them because I'm curious what the video doesn't have that they want it to have. Like, for example, does it not have their own voice in it? Does it not have captions? Because there are different tools that might be better for what they're looking for, but I completely
Or
agree
is there
with those tools.
pain point that they don't have enough time or the skills to do it?
Exactly.
And then you might leverage one of those type of tools.
Yeah, I think that's like a perfect question where it'd be worth it to take some time to think, okay, what's actually the problem here to figure out what you're looking for.
They came back with, it's time.
Yeah. So I would play around with, and there's usually a free trial on these, Opus Clip, Descript, or Kapwing, just to see which one is going to be most relevant for their business needs.
Completely agree.
Other questions? Online? No? So I have a question. So when should I not use AI? You know, like what's the considerations there? You know, when should I shouldn't? And then, you know, I think a lot of those considerations would be security and ethics, right?
Yep.
So
I'll speak just really quickly on bias. There's definitely been a lot of research that's being done, and I still think it's relatively inconclusive on how biased AI could be. So we talked a little bit about hiring, right? So I've gotten some requests in the past that clients want to put all the applicants' resumes into an AI and have the AI select the resume that they should interview. And you would think that that would be one of the least biased ways to do that because there wouldn't actually be a human reading it, it would be an AI reading it. And what they found was that because they put in, for example, their historical data on how a company has hired in the past, that meant that the AI also had that historical bias. So then I worked with them and we tried to figure out how to make sure that the AI would not simply select the resume that maybe just matched how all of their employees' resumes look. So I think there are a lot of just things like that you have to remember. It's not always as easy as just putting something in and getting the result. You do have to be really clear about what you want it to do.
Yeah, I saw a similar story to that where basically the AI said the perfect person to hire was named Brandon and played lacrosse in high school based on their historic hiring process. So there is a lot of bias in these tools because they're based on everything we've done, and we are, to say imperfect creatures, I think would be generous.
Yeah. The only other one I would bring up is security.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about it before, but just making sure that you're thinking about what you're putting in the AI, you've read the fine print of what's being kept and what's not.
For me, I think it's just more about not expecting AI to do the final version, at least at this point in history. Where I love using AI, I can't think of anything outside of like maybe making coffee, and I'm sure it's coming, where I wouldn't use AI in a business setting, but I would never let it be the final version. I just use it as a way of helping me get to the delivery point.
Yeah. I think there's obviously a lot of fear of, is AI going to take my job? And what I always say to that is, it's going to make your job a lot more fun because AI is not able to do things like, have a conversation with your team and decide what you discussed at the Agents of Change conference and how we can implement this in our company. Now, AI can make that conversation a lot more interesting because if you recorded that entire conversation, maybe it could pick up on things you hadn't yet. But at the end of the day, you still need to have a person there that can make that final decision to figure out how we're going to move something forward.
Yeah, I definitely see it at this point more as an assistant for anybody. And to your point, I know that people are worried about losing their jobs to AI, and absolutely people are going to lose their jobs to AI. But AI will also create a lot of jobs. This is true with every technology that humans have ever had. And I would say that it's, and this is an old saw, but marketers or whomever aren't going to lose their job to AI, but marketers who don't use AI are going to lose their jobs to marketers who do. So I think, and I talk to my daughters about this all the time, I'm like, figure out how to use these tools because this is going to give you a competitive advantage. Whether it's a competitive advantage to get a job or a competitive advantage for your company, I think you really need to figure out how can I use these tools in the same way that you wouldn't go back to using an abacus. The same way you wouldn't stop using the internet. These are the tools that help us work in today's world, and the faster you get up to speed and get ahead of the competition on this, I think the better, more secure position you'll be in.
I was chatting with my dad because I will say when I chose to be an English major in college, he wasn't the most thrilled. But now all of a sudden, being able to master the English language, that's the new programming language, because you don't necessarily need to learn how to do coding anymore. You can basically use your own language to tell the AI what to do. And that's where prompt engineering, I know this is a word that's been thrown around a lot, everything that Rich talked about, if you put one word differently when you're trying to speak to the AI, that'll change the entire response. So it definitely you need to have a mastery of the English language in order to do that, or any other language, because AIs speak everything.
So I think we have a lot of small businesses that are listening to this that are saying, okay, now's the time, whoever said that, and they're gonna start. What challenges might they come up against, and how might they mitigate those challenges?
One thing I speak to my clients about all the time is there's always a fear of cost. And I think they said the other day that Accenture has already gotten $4 billion this year in AI projects. And all of a sudden, if you're a small business, you're like, no way I can do AI then, because I can't afford the price tags that Accenture has, right? You don't need Accenture to bring AI to your business. If you're getting anything out of this presentation, that's what I want to be really, really clear on. As we talked about, there are a lot of very clear ways you can bring AI into your business that'll really improve your ROI, and they don't need to cost millions of dollars. So I'd say,
for these, a lot of our, people in the room and our directory members, they don't want to spend $500.
Yeah, so I'll say most of our solutions that I make for my clients, this is again on average, most of them we charge about $2,000 to build it, and then it's usually $100 to $200 a month to keep it going. Obviously that changes depending on what the project is. Some are a lot lower, some are a little bit higher, but that's because we pick an AI that will literally give you the most help right now based on the pain point that you have.
And you're talking about a custom solution versus these out of the box
Exactly.
solutions.
And then
that are
sometimes
$20.
I do talk to someone and be like, hey, you should just go with InVideo, right? And that's fine, right? Because my goal is to basically help small businesses improve. And if that means we build something custom for you, we can do that. But it also might mean, hey, I say InVideo or some of the others we've talked about today might be a better fit.
I think that just carving out some time to experiment with some of these things would probably be the best advice, because we talked about the fact, the first time you use it, it's magic, but you didn't really have much of a goal in mind, perhaps. And when you're sitting there saying like, well, how am I going to use this? What are you not so good at? And maybe just start there. Like if you literally don't know anything about marketing, maybe you just say, hey, look, here's some information about my business. Here's some information about my ideal customer. Help me develop a basic marketing plan for this. And that might be one way that you could start, just to start figuring out how to use these tools. And because once you figure out what you want to do, like I said, it's not a single prompt solution. You are probably going to iterate and you're going to spend some time on it. It might take you an hour or so, but you might be able to create an AI agent or CustomGPT or whatever you want to call it that will be able to replicate that job many, many times over. So just like if you're training an intern or a new employee, they're not going to get it on the first day. They're not going to be immediately successful for you. You have to spend a little bit of time to get them up to speed. And I would say the same is true with AI.
So we talked a little bit about, we've talked a lot about marketing, but we've touched on other aspects. I figured, as we're coming to a close, there's a lot of other ways that small businesses can use AI that are not marketing related.
Absolutely.
And before we started rolling the cameras, you were talking about some clients that were using it for cutting wood.
Oh yeah, so not my clients,
I'm just
but yes.
curious, like what other, finance, HR, manufacturer, like what other ways are we using it? And we don't need to go too far into it, but I just want to make sure that people understand this is not just about marketing.
Right. Well, the example I gave you was when the first time I ever spoke on AI was to a bunch of sawmill owners, and people were like, why would they possibly need AI? And as I discovered, they were actually, many of them already using it. And I believe it was Hancock Lumber already was using it in the same way that one version of AI is facial recognition. Well, they basically had the same thing for wood. where normally you would hire a person named a grader who would have to look at all 4 sides of the board, walk down it, maybe they were late to work, maybe they had a bad day, the grading's not perfect every time. Now they just run it down a chute and have 4 cameras there and get a perfect grading of it every time. And another use of the AI was takes a look at the log and it says, what is the most optimal way to cut this log to have the least amount of waste? So those were like 2 AI uses, obviously not related to marketing, that were incredibly valuable and made people's lives safer inside the place, and it was just a great use of those tools. So.
I'm looking at India only because I know she works for a cleaning company, and I'm like, can I take a picture of the inside of my stove and have AI tell me exactly how I should clean this because it's smoking right now?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I could also ask Green Clean Mate about it, but like, I
think that's actually a good one, right? Like, so I don't know much about your business, but like, it can add a new revenue stream. Right? So like you think about that, but all of a sudden now you are cleaning business that you would think couldn't have AI on it. All of a sudden, if you offer a new product to your clients, like here's a technology that you can charge your clients for, that you can take pictures of, and it'll tell you how to clean something. Yeah. No, I'm serious. I think I think that's something also is we're talking a lot about AIs in terms of saving time and processes. Yeah. It can become a new revenue stream. As my dad started this company 20 years ago as a call center. That's what sales was 20 years ago, and now we're creating AIs for people. That's a good example there. Like, a cleaning company you wouldn't necessarily think, but all of a sudden that could be a really interesting product to differentiate yourself. So I think the other ones I've done is one of my clients is an accountant, has an accounting firm. And traditionally, accounting firms are very much professional services. He's never had a product before. So I helped him create an AI that had the entire IRS website in it, so it knew the entire US tax code. So now his clients, instead of spending $200 an hour working with him, they can get a subscription to this product to ask their tax questions too. Now again, he always is very clear to his clients, it might not give you the exact right answer that I would give you, but it's a more cost-effective way to do it, and now he has a new product that he's able to sell. So I think that's something to just kind of keep in mind for the audience as well as it doesn't have to save you time, it can also make you money.
But it can also...
Online question.
Okay. Yep.
If you're on a shoestring budget and you have copyrighted self-authored poetry and lyrics that you want to protect, how do you make sure that your work isn't stolen by others?
I'm not sure if that's an AI question necessarily, because if it's anywhere online, it's probably already been read by the AI. So that's going to be problematic. I don't know that there's a way. I mean, right now, the New York Times and other news magazines and a lot of people are suing AI companies for illegally training up their machines on this. But if that work's been published, it's pretty hard to, and there's really no control Z on that. It's probably already out there. Now, there's a big difference between, in my opinion, training up AI on different styles of poetry or prose and somebody coming in and just copying and pasting that and claiming it as their own, which we've seen since the beginning of time. There is a tool out there called copyscape.com that you can pop in some language from your website or your writing, and it can tell you if it's elsewhere on the web or if there's a version that's very close. So that might be one tool that they could use to find out if someone's already stolen it.
Yeah. I do think it's really important, as Rich said, to say, like, it's very, very, very unlikely that someone's going to say, write me a poem, and it's going to take one of the poems from that website, right? Because that's not how the technology works.
Yeah, it's more like a remix artist.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's actually really important for people to understand what AI does. It's generative, not, which means that it's creating something new. Where in the past, when we thought about Google, you searched for something that was already there.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference between AI. Now, again, that we can get into the ethics of whether that was right for them to take all those poems and use it to train the AI, but it's not going to take that poem and say, hey, here's a poem about something that's already been written.
Okay. So are we at time, Pete?
Just about, maybe one last question about
Okay.
writing.
Can AI be a useful tool for nonprofit grant writing?
100%.
I literally made one. My mother-in-law works for the United Way in Bristol, Connecticut, and I just made that AI for her. It's pretty cool. So they put in all the grants they've written in the past, and then they can put in the grant that they're applying for, and it'll write answers for them. I was very clear with my mother-in-law. I said this is not a final product, but it will save a lot of time in terms of writing that final draft.
Cool. And you could put that into any of these $20 a month,
Yes.
things too, to do that. Yeah. We'll be using that. By local. So are there any other questions? All right. Well, I want to say thank you for coming today. I hope that you all learned something. I will give a quick plug to Agents of Change conference, which is coming up in a few weeks that Rich runs, and I think he's offering a discount for
There is a
Buy
discount
Local.
for Buy Local if you go to the agentsofchange.com and you grab any one of our tickets, including a digital pass. You can save $25 with just put in Buy Local when you get there, and you'll save $25. And if you get it by the 30th, the tickets are currently $50 off for all ticket types as well. We've got a number of presentations on AI as well, so if you want to keep your learning, that's one place you can go to check it out, and that's theagentsofchange.com.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be there. It's a really great conference, particularly for our
Connor
small
will be there.
business.
Yeah, we have a booth, so if you want to chat more about AI.
Too. So thank you again for coming. This will be up online, so if you want to watch it again or share with a friend in a week or so, we'll have it up on our YouTube page. I know a lot of you will be watching it after the fact as well, and I appreciate that. And for those in the room, I mean, these guys are here for a couple more minutes, and then for those that are not in the room, they're both very accessible local small business owners and want to help you. So please reach out to them as well. And if you're not a directory member of ours, please join. It's free. If you're a locally owned independent business, we're basically giving you free marketing. So please register, put your information on our directory so that we can share it with people and make sure that we can keep reminding everyone to choose local first. We'll see you at the next session. Thanks.